All right, we're ready to go. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Milton Conservation Commission public meeting for Tuesday, March 12th, 2024. The Conservation Commission is appointed by, or the members are appointed by the Select Board to implement the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act, as well as the Milton Town Bylaw governing the wetlands. As a matter of formality, we will introduce ourselves in a moment, but we do ask members of the public to participate, to ask questions, to make comments, and not be shy about speaking. However, we do ask that you identify yourself for the record purposes. My name is John Kiernan. Steve, I'll just read across the top, Steve.
Yep, Steve Ivas, Conservation Agent.
Philip?
Philip Driscoll, Conservation Clerk.
Hans?
Hans Van Lingen, Commission Member.
Arthur Doyle?
Arthur Doyle, Member.
Tom Palmer?
Tom Palmer, Member.
And Wendy?
Good evening. I'm Wendy Garpo, one of the commissioners.
Thank you very much. Thanks to all. We're ready to begin. Number one on the agenda is notice of intent at 510 Harland Street.
Ed Corcoran.
Ned, are you going to present?
Yes, and if I can share screen, I have a brief PowerPoint presentation with the relevant materials. But Ned Corcoran, attorney for Roberta Williamson, 26 High Street, Milton.
Hey. I've got to figure out how to let Ned share the screen. That's all.
Can you make him co-host?
Well, I have done it in the past, but my memory is not very good. Let me,
if you go to share screen, Ned? Can you allow participants to share?
Make co-host. Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Here we go. You can see that?
Yes, we can,
Yes.
Ned. Thank you.
All right. So thank you again, everybody. My name is Ned Corcoran. I'm here with B.B. Williamson, Bill Madden, and Russ Waldron. Russ delineated the wetlands for us. This arose out of an enforcement action for some filling that was taking place at the Williamson property at Harland Street. The work that was being done at the time was a simple project to replace, in this location, an old wooden set of retaining walls that were rotted and to be replaced with concrete replacement. There was a concern that work was being done within or approximate to a wetland. It was a wetland that we did not know and Ms. Williamson didn't know existed at the time. We retained Russ Waldron to flag the wetlands, and lo and behold, the wetlands have increased substantially right up against the existing driveway. So the wetland flags are all shown in this line, and in some cases right up against the driveway. I know we were out yesterday with Steve. Steve got a chance to observe the location of the flags. He can comment himself when appropriate. But the 25, this driveway, this existing driveway that comes in to the left off of Harland Street is within the 25-foot no disturb. And the area of the work is up here. It's clearly within the 100-foot wetland buffer. So the work that's being proposed in this notice of intent is several things. One is to finish the work to replace the retaining walls at this location, to resurface this portion of the driveway. It's an old asphalt impervious driveway, to replace that with 3/4-inch crushed stone, which would be pervious and work better approximate to the wetlands, and install a swale on this side of the driveway. We show a proposed erosion control barrier, but that barrier has actually been installed, and we think it's in good shape and is acting appropriately. I think Steve can comment on that as well. One of the things that we'll need to do, obviously, is to have a site walk with the commission because you'll have to approve under the NOI, you'll have to approve the line of the wetlands as they've been flagged. We were out yesterday. I know, John, I spoke with you by phone, but Steve and Anthony Musto, the contractor, and I met with Miss Williamson on the site yesterday afternoon. Phoebe's just home from time away, and she noticed significant amount of erosion that was happening in this area proximate to the stairs that enter to this porch, right above this area that had begun to be excavated for the construction of the retaining wall. This is a look into where the work had started, and the area of the erosion is happening here with ground that has pulled away from the area below the stair. We had met and with the notion that this was a pretty emergent situation, that we needed to shore this up. And so we asked John by phone after I met with Steve in the field if we could get going on the placement of footings along this area, which would be where the retaining wall would be, and then form the wall so that we could pour concrete. The work would be done by hand, using hand tools and not mechanical tools. This is another view looking from above down into this area. This has all deteriorated away. It has worn away behind this concrete wall. This is a separate view looking in. You can see how this all has been eroding away with recent rains. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Madden. We've got 3 fairly simple slides that show the proposed work. And you can see this would be looking sort of into where the work was being done under the porch wall that would be coming this way and then coming towards you in the plan. Bill?
Hey, Ned, before you pass the baton, can I
Sure.
ask you a question?
Yes.
Not in the picture that you've got sharing, but on the previous slide that you shared, the driveway that goes to the right has got that orange line going up the driveway to the house, but
Yep.
I don't know what that is. Is that a utility
That's a
line?
utility line.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's just there. It's showing as part of the existing condition.
Understood. Thank you.
Great,
Thanks. Go
thanks,
ahead,
Ned. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Madden, landscape architect, and I've had the wonderful opportunity to collaborate with B.V. Williamson on developing a very modest plant palette for this new landscape intervention. As Ned noted, there are 2 retaining walls that were being built to replace the previous timber retaining walls. And so, you know, we have a unique situation where our plant palette needs to do multiple things. And it's very important to us that it does multiple things, is that this is a very shady environment. So it needs to be sort of resilient and durable with limited shade, rabbit and deer tolerant or resistant, and also native. The homeowner is very thoughtful and sort of respects this sort of sensitive ecology. So that's a lot of sort of filters of decision making that we've been thinking about with the planting. Now, if you go to the next slide, you can start to see sort of the planting sort of layout. There is a small stone dust walkway that's connecting the existing driveway to the left that wraps you down sort of the sloping topography to the right. And so in the spirit of being sensitive to this type of landscape, you know, we're proposing a stone dust walkway, so it can be primarily porous over time. And then a diverse plant palette. If we go to the next slide, Ned, you know, we're using, again, shade tolerant native plants for the most part. And the sweet fern is primarily used for erosion control because of the steep slopes and, you know, hardiness within the limited amount of sunlight. I'm happy to answer any questions about sort of the planting strategy for this terrace landscape if you'd like, or we could.
I would just point out one thing. This is a different orientation. This is the proposed new retaining walls here. And this is the area where the erosion was really taking place, below and approximate to the stair here. And it's where we felt we needed to get in right away yesterday and shore that up.
Where is the material being carried that's eroding from there?
Just down into where the trench area had already been.
I got you.
Right. So just down into here. If you come backwards from there, there's actually a berm that's built up with the excavation that took place, so that all of the erosion is happening down into this hole. Nothing is escaping out towards the wetland. And you'll be able to see that when we do the site walk.
Ned, can you go back to that, or perhaps Bill, because Bill mentioned a stone dust path, but I don't see it on your diagram. Where is that located?
It's parallel to the retaining wall, the top retaining wall. You see it in sort of a light blue color along the purple plants that we're showing there.
Understood. So it goes from the left driveway to the right driveway?
Correct. Yeah, it's sort of high on the left side where the existing driveway is, and then sort of drops down as you move to the right.
Understood. Thank you.
This is about a 6 or 8 foot drop. So it stairs down.
All right, questions from commissioners? I think Ned has correctly pointed out we should do a site visit to approve the delineation. Before we even get a site visit, are there questions or comments from abutters or members of the public? The only hand I see raised is Ned, yours. I can't see anybody else. So commissioners, how about this Saturday at 8:30? Is that doable? And let me go through. Mr. Doyle, can you do Saturday?
Checking right now, Mr. Chairman.
Did everybody check while we wait? Hans, are you good?
Yep, I can do Saturday.
Tom Palmer?
8:30 Saturday morning.
Yes, sir.
Good, yeah.
Wendy?
My apologies. No, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be out of state for the next couple of weekends.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, Wendy, that 8:30 was for your benefit. I hope you know that.
Maybe you should make it 6:30. Since I'm not going to be there.
All right, let's see if we can get a quorum.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
That's good. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm good. So let's do it at 8:30 on this Saturday. Is Bibi, is that good with you? Will you allow us on your property?
I'm good. Oh, you're welcome. I'm going to be out of town, but you're welcome to come. The sooner we can get this taken care of before there's any more damage, the better. So right. I'm fine with your coming.
And that's Ned, Bill, that's good with you guys?
Yes.
All right. And Steve, I didn't ask you. Are you good with that?
Yes.
All right. And I don't think both Steve and Phil need to be there, but if you want to, you're certainly welcome. Is that okay with you, Philip?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Good. All right. So 8:30 on Saturday. What's the date? Is that the 16th?
16th it is.
3/16. We'll meet right on site there. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's attendance and participation.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So next on the agenda is NEPRWA, T&H Baker and Baker Dams. Do we have a presenter?
Yeah. Hi, Sean McCanty, River Restoration Director for the
Sean, thank you for the
discussion.
Yep, the floor is yours, sir. Tell us about this.
Absolutely. And I apologize, I'm coming off a cold, so I'll try not to cough too much.
Okay.
But basically, what we'd like to do is talk to you guys all about the the two dams that are on the Neponset between Milton and Boston in the lower Neponset. So that's the T&H Dam, the Towston and Hollingsworth Dam, and the Walter Baker Dam. And really the reason this is kind of coming up is we've had conversations with EPA during their cleanup, their excuse me, their planning stages about the future of the dams and the way it will shape the cleanup. And they have started conversations with state agencies, particularly DCR, which owns the dams, and Fish and Game, which would be in charge of both marine fish passage and also any dam removal fall from that. So I kind of wanted to provide a brief history, which some of you may already know, kind of bring us to where we're at today, and then kind of talk about what we'd like to see from the commission, or rather ask the commission what they'd like to see from us is really what the goal is here. So as I said, there's two dams that are owned by Department of Conservation and Recreation. Both of the dams on the lower Neponset currently do not have any fish passage, so they inhibit migratory fish. Particularly of interest for the lower Neponset is blueback herring, American shad, and rainbow smelt, which we'll talk more about in a minute. In addition, existing brook trout populations in the freshwater are inhibited from passage to the sea and having sea runs by these two dams. It's worth noting the dams also potentially contribute to flooding risks, which as we move further and further into an ever-changing climate is going to become more and more of a concern. The dams themselves were rebuilt in the 1960s following Hurricane Diane. So neither dam structure is technically historic, but the Baker Dam does sit within the Dorchester-Milton Lower Mills Industrial District, and it has strong association with the former chocolate factory, along with some memories of long-term residents. So we want to be respectful of that. And as I said, both of these dams also are located within the lower Neponset Superfund area that EPA is working in. So kind of what NEPRWA has been at this before. Our prior work around these two dams has included assembling a Citizens Advisory Committee in 2009 to talk about the future of those two dams. That committee included representation from state agencies, as well as residents and community organizations, basically anyone who had an opinion on the future of the dams. And a special effort was taken to engage members or engage residents that would be specifically opposed to the removal of the dams. So kind of summarize that real quick. For the T&H Dam, again, the further upstream dam, there wasn't a significant constituency found that supported maintaining the dam. And the CAC did endorse its removal. For the Baker Dam, as opposed to full removal, a compromise was reached that would create a nature-like fishway, an alternative to leaving it in place or removing it entirely. And the thought was that this would allow fish passage while maintaining the kind of aesthetic features of the impoundment behind the dam. And as opposed to a fish ladder, this means that the ramp up would be behind the impoundment and therefore wouldn't affect breeding smelt habitat at the time. I wanted to take the time to point out that the conceptual designs back in 2009 suggested the nature-like fishway would not worsen flooding, but also would not improve the flooding issues around the dams. And then, so that was at least the outcome of the CAC in 2009. And the issue with PCB contamination in the lower Neponset was known at the time. The extent of it and what the plan to do with the PCB contamination wasn't really fully understood. And so kind of languished from then on until 2 years ago when EPA designated the area a Superfund site and began its cleanup planning process. So I said that's kind of the impetus for coming back before you guys today to talk about where we're at. So EPA has kind of been doing its early planning stages, working its way down from Mother Brook to the estuary. And they've raised some questions about the future of the two dams because it's going to impact the design of the removal, whether some sediments would be kept and left in place, whether all would be removed, and especially the Baker Dam, it would affect the salt water moving up with the tide, affects the chemistry of PCB mobilization, and they would really like to know a little bit more about DCR's plans for the dam. So all of that is a big way to say EPA and the state are currently discussing the future of the dam. We'd obviously like to re-engage the Citizens Advisory Committee and bring it up to speed with the, there's been 15 years of residential changeover. We'd like to understand what the public is thinking and also what the city of Boston and the town of Milton are thinking as well. One thing I was going to add is that since in the intervening 15 years that we've kind of been waiting on the PCB issue, the Fish and Game Division of Ecological Restoration has done more nature-like fishway creations, and there have been more done nationwide. And a big issue has come up in that they are less effective than previously thought and require more regular and relatively expensive maintenance. So that is an issue. DER's current position is that their normal way of funding this with federal grants would not allow for the creation of a nature-like fishway. Which doesn't mean you couldn't find alternate funds, but it does mean that their typical approach of funding, even a partial removal wouldn't necessarily be applicable here. Trying to go through my notes, sorry. And then I guess the last major point to consider is the smelt population. So we've had some conversations with marine fisheries, and smelt prefer to breed right at the head of tide, just above the salt wedge. As climate change is raising sea levels, it's moving that further and further up against the dam. So I'm trying to think of the phrase, the best opinion of marine fisheries is that the smelt population of the lower Neponset has declined as a result of climate change and being unable to migrate further past the dam. If the dam were to be, if the Baker Dam were to be removed, the breeding zone, breeding habitat for the smelt would increase, and obviously that's certainly something to consider. And as we pull this together, as we're talking to you and the community members, trying to reestablish some kind of advisory group. We're also trying to find the funds to get an updated hydrologic and hydraulic evaluation of the dam and its alternatives. So leaving the dam in place, creating this nature-like fishway, or full removal. I'm really trying to understand what that would do to flooding concerns and fluid dynamics coming off the main river into the estuary. So that was a long way, a long background.
Right. No, that's very helpful. But can I ask you just a couple of really basic questions then?
Of course.
Sequencing is going to be very, very important as to which dam is removed first or altered, or even if it's a hybrid fish ladder, et cetera. The sequence is still important. And I think you're aware of this, but we ran into a problem within the last year, not a problem, but an issue that came up. We had a state grant to dredge the Milton Harbor there. That's downstream from the Adams Street Bridge. And then it dawned on somebody that we don't want to clean that now with the dredging project and get rid of all that contaminated sediment, and then have the Superfund come in behind that or upstream of that, and then release more PCBs and contaminants and end up in the same place. So the resolution was we're going to stall the dredging of the harbor, the Milton Harbor, so-called, and then start upstream towards the Mother Brook side and move in that direction. Am I correct? And may we assume that the same kind of appropriate sequencing will take place whenever and whatever is done with these dams?
Yes. So EPA is currently working its way downstream, as it were, starting at the confluence of Mother Brook. That's where they started their planning. They've already done some early action removals of, sediment spoil that was placed onto the land, so where it's now soil. And their conversations with DCR have been primarily focused on the teenage dam at the moment, both because it's the first dam in the sequence and also because the highest concentrations of PCBs so far they've detected are behind that dam. So that's kind of their first target, and their goal would be to move downstream in the remediation. So, whether or not the dams come out, their plan would be to remediate as they go, going downstream.
All right, the second question, and I think it may be just a rhetorical one, because I know that with marine fisheries involved and coastal zone management, they're all well aware of this, but that smelt breeding area right by the Adams Street Bridge is phenomenal. And I was out there just by happenstance, I guess last season, and you could have walked across the water. There was so many smelt there. It was phenomenal. So I recognize that those much smarter than I am can say that these are just a decreasing population. But boy, it certainly was fertile ground, I guess is the word, this last season. Therefore, my question is the same, and I've asked this of the EPA folks and some folks at Coastal Zone Management. When those dams are removed and the PCBs and the contaminants are released, what in the world can be done to protect that smelt hatchery? Or breeding?
Great question. So my understanding from EPA is that their goal is to limit as much mobilization as possible. So they'll remove the sediment behind the dams before, if the community was to come together and say, yeah, take both of the dams out, it would still have to wait until EPA had done its cleanup. We're not going to, bulldoze a dam and let all the contaminated sediment spill out. And I think their plan is to, this is partly where the dam question comes into place, is they're planning to kind of channel the river a little bit out so they can remove in the dry, as it were, and really get into it and prevent as much mobilization as possible. So they'll divert the water in sections, clean that section, take out all the sediment, fill it back with cleaner sediment, non-PCB sediment, and then kind of return the river to its course.
Okay. Third question, and this one is a real sort of a classic stupid question, and I asked it before. We had some kind of a climate change gathering, and I asked about whether or not the Citizens Advisory Committee or anybody is at least considering whether or not water power is still a viable option for generating electricity. Like in the old days when the mills used to run through, the churning, water generated power. And I was thinking specifically of whether or not right now right where the smelt hatchery is, there are some buildings that are counterlevered over the river, and the water really runs through there very fast. And if there were some kind of a water wheel there, that could generate at least the building's power, I'm sure as efficiently as some of the solar power systems are. And just from a green energy perspective, is there any consideration to putting water wheels back on the river, which I assume would require that the dam be kept in place?
So as far as I'm aware, there is not. I'm not an expert in hydroelectric power, but my understanding of it is that to create, more than a building's worth of power requires a larger drop and a larger flow than you could conceivably get in a river like the Lower Neponset. Now,
no, understood. Mine was a real question because I have no idea. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Questions, comments from commissioners? No?
John, could I just mention that I've been in some of the recent meetings with the EPA and I've heard about what they're doing, and I retained the word Indiana because that's where the PCBs are scheduled to go, behind T&H Dam. That's how far they will be trucked away to a landfill.
Wow. And it's going to be a pretty expensive project,
I think so, yeah.
boy.
Yeah, well, it sort of gives you the pause to think if they had just been a little more careful way back when, we wouldn't have these big expenses. But live and learn, right?
Sure enough. Any other thoughts or comments? Wendy, did you have a thought?
Yes, well, a comment really. I just, Sean, I wanted to thank you and the Neponset River Watershed Association for all of your work that you're doing on this issue. I know it's a multifaceted and complex issue and extremely time consuming, and I'm very, very thankful and supportive of the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners, abutters, members of the public? Well, with that, thank you very much. And Sean, please continue to do what you're doing and keep us informed, keep us in the loop, because these are big issues. And we'd like to participate to the extent possible or appropriate, and certainly learn of your efforts. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right.
Thanks,
Next
Sean.
on the agenda is number 3, which is enforcement order at 24 Wentworth Farm. And I see Jordan Strom and Mrs. Strom, and who else?
PJ from Oak Development.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And you have submitted some data to us, photographs, etc. Can you give us kind of a brief overview of what you've done since our last meeting? I guess it would go to PJ. It's up to you.
I'm happy to take it away. So we did some digging after the last meeting regarding all the concerns of the commission. Submitted a memo with a bunch of information. So I'll just go over that. And if I could share my screen, I'd like to just start actually with the original site plan so that I could set the stage and then I can go from there. But I just
You should be able to share now.
There we go. So desktop 2. Great. So can everybody see?
Yep, we can see it. We can see
Okay.
it.
So this is the original site plan that was approved back a year and a half or so ago. Obviously, there's a big decline here from the cul-de-sac up top. We've got roughly a 9-foot drop from there from the curb down into the flat part of the driveway. Obviously, this hill drops down quite a bit. So we go, from 84 to 76. So it's quite a large drop again from here down. So as the original design had a wall here retaining the proposed septic here, in between of which was, and you can see right here, a 40 mil impervious barrier where this red mark is, okay? This wall was as here stated, block retaining wall design and type by others. So there was no specifics around this wall being concrete, at least to my knowledge on this plan that was approved. There was nothing here that was guiding me as to the type of wall. Now I know that there was a concrete wall discussed, but ultimately this is what we ended up deciding to go with the block wall. So there are 2 issues here, or I shouldn't say issues, but 2 items of on-site change that we ended up making. One is we decided to go with a block wall in this location made out of the large stones that were taken out of the ground. And when I say large, the size of Volkswagens that built this wall here. The location of the septic was never changed, and the 40 mil liner was installed. And then the second issue was that right around the 86 mark here, and I could show you on a separate plan, there is a 2-inch drain that we added. Now you'll notice down here, you'll see this footing drain, and then on it, a trench drain with safe grade. So this 24-foot, 4-inch wide trench drain that goes along the garage was to be connected to the drainage system that was ultimately connected to this Cultec chamber in the back. So this runoff drain, RD, comes from all the gutters and this drain here. So all in the original design, all the water from the driveway was going all the way to the house, okay? Now, we installed this drain and all the drains around the house and this Cultec system per the plan. We installed the septic and a wall and this 40 mil liner. So this site plan was done when we did the foundation site plan for the permit. And you'll notice the catch basin here. He does not notate the drain, but it is installed at that cobblestone apron. He shows this boulder wall here that we installed.
I'm
Then,
sorry, who's the he that you're referring to?
this is the site engineer who did the original plan. Who was that?
Jeff Kane.
Jeff Kane, yes.
Yeah.
When we were working on the septic, Jeff wasn't as readily available and he was holding us up because of his schedule. So we ended up using Terry McSweeney, an engineer out of the South Shore, to do our septic as-built, which is right here. The septic as-built was approved by the health department and signed off on the 28th with a certificate of compliance. You'll see, as notated, the 40 mil rubber membrane along the wall. Another note I just want to notate is that we're 59 feet from the wetlands with our actual system, whereas originally the distance was 52. So we are further away from the wetlands with our system. So this was approved and the COC was issued. You can see the mill liner right here against the block wall. And then lastly, this is the engineered letter stamped by Bowden Engineering certifying that the wall was sufficient. Now you'll notice there's significant, erosion just because there's no plants yet, right? So we're not concerned about the erosion. I was there today, actually, after all that rain. And there's a couple issues here and there, but considering the amount of rain we had and the fact that there's zero grass, I was pretty impressed with the lack of erosion. And so we're putting sod in on the area above the wall here in 2 weeks. And we're going to be also planting the rest of all of the grass around the back with seed. So the erosion should be mitigated once all of that vegetation takes hold. Now, the last thing is the drain, which was installed here. Now, that drain wasn't anything but, and again, you can see the catch basin right here. That is purely to catch the large amount of rain that's coming down the driveway because the house was getting flooded due to the large amount of rain. And I can show you here. Forgive me here for a minute. The catch basin. Can everybody see that? Okay.
Yes, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this is after a rain event, but you can see all of this over in the bottom. This is actual debris from the catch basin that overflowed toward my client's property. And the fact that it's not draining. This was the day after a large rain event, and this was the result of their garage before we installed the drainage. And so, as a precaution, due to the overflow of the street and the large amount of rain, we added this catch basin just to divert the water into the runoff drain that was on this corner. So instead of having the entire garage and everything around this side of the house go into this pipe, we chose to go to this one, and all of which lead out to that Cultec chamber. So again, to recap, we have the catch basin, which we put in to help mitigate the large amount of water runoff from the street. And then we have the stone wall, which we put in as we, designed and what's it say here? the type of design by others. We ended up going with the retaining wall that was made out of the boulders from the site, avoiding transporting them off-site, saving money. And also the natural aesthetic is what my client wanted. And then obviously put the septic in, had it approved. Moving forward, our plan is to finish the vegetation to stop the runoff. And then once everything is established, we would remove the erosion control, but leave it in place until all of that is established.
I understand what you said about the catch basin right around elevation 86, and
Yes.
you piping it sort of up in the diagram as we're looking at it, to that corner right there.
Correct.
But in your original calculations for the size of the Cultec chamber in the back of the home, is this an increase in water? I understand that the water would have gone into the what I would call a French drain or the trench drain anyway, but it sounds like it's more water than anybody expected coming out of the higher elevation, whether it's overtopping the detention basin or just coming off the street or whatever it is.
No, I think in a normal rain event, it's the exact same amount of water because it's just the water from our site. And honestly, in a regular rain event as well, the water would have just sloped toward the house, right? And so we had some leaks in the basement. We had water going into the garage, and we just didn't feel that the original design was going to handle listen, like the way that this site was so difficult with the way that all the elevations were, there was no way to anticipate the exact runoff a year and a half prior, right? Once the site is completely designed, sometimes you have to make on-site changes to adapt. And listen, we could have left it and I could have pitched the driveway to go toward the garage and it all could have gone into that drain. But I just felt uncomfortable with that. So we added the second drain just as a precaution. And then we learned that catch basin in the street is overflowing, that's producing the larger amount of volume, not necessarily the volume on our site. The volume on our site is what it is, and it's not changing. It's the catch basin was there as a precaution to avoid any flooding to the house, and then ended up being really helpful when the street overflowed, if that makes sense.
It does. Can I ask you this? The pictures that you just showed us and you actually submitted earlier to the commission, am I correct that those pictures showing the garage were before you had done the grading exterior to the house?
Yeah,
and B is prior to the putting in the cement floor of the garage?
Yes, yeah, you are correct. And I think what it was is we had so much water come in that it made us nervous, right? And so this grade is probably 8 inches lower than the final concrete slab, right? But it's a lot of water, and it was ending up seeping into the basement over where I'm standing when I take this photo, right? So I mean, water is a developer's enemy when it comes to turning a house over. The last thing we want is calls saying that my basement's flooded. So it was just a precaution to put the drain in so that we didn't have any further issues.
And if I can add to that, even after the concrete floor went in for the garage, and everything is said and done, we still get some water in the garage, even with the existing drains in place. And so, this is still a, minor amounts of water compared to what we were getting beforehand, for sure. But it is, some amount still.
All right, thank you. Now, with respect to, we did receive, and it's now part of our record, we did receive the notice from Bowden Engineering saying, and I'm quoting here, based on the size and placement of the rocks, I find this gravity wall is acceptable to perform its intended function to restrain the soil force to overturn the wall. That's not exactly what we'd be looking for if we were considering a certificate of compliance for the septic system. And the reason I'm saying that is I go back to communications from Jeff Kane that I called Jeff and asked him, if he knew why there was a difference between the plan that he submitted and we approved. And he forwarded to me an email to you, it's to you, PJ, but at Oak Development. And there's a CE Carl at 1 at Verizon. And the date is September 15th, 2023. This is now part of our record as well. And in the series of emails that I saw, he essentially said, I can't sign off on this septic plan. And then he listed on this particular date, based on measurements using top of foundation 1, the trenches are not stepped per plan.
Correct.
P2 and P3 height above ESHWT, okay. Trench P1 is 6 inches too low.
Yeah,
Two.
so we
one at a time.
sorry.
Go ahead with one if you want to respond.
Yeah, I mean, we disagreed in how he had the system designed. He had it stepped down in a really strange manner that we had never seen in the 40 years of installing septics. And we saw no reason why we couldn't keep the system level in accordance with Title V, but there was no issues around that. Jeff didn't have time to come out, honestly, to be frankly honest. He was holding us up over a month at one point. And so I touched base with Terry. I asked him if having the system level across would be acceptable in Title V standards. And he's a septic engineer. And he agreed, and we made the on-site change. He came out, he did the as-built, he approved it, and then submitted it, and it's been signed off.
Well, the as-built was for the survey of the plot plan. It was not for the septic system.
This as-built that I'm showing you right now is the as-built for the septic that was submitted to the Board of Health. Now, I don't have
Wait a minute, hold on. Don't pass over that. It's not Jeff Kane. Right?
That's fine. I'm allowed to use any engineer I want to certify a system.
And did that person observe this before it was backfilled or not?
Yes, he came out, he did the as-built based on the in-person site visit. He created the as-built and he submitted it to the Board of Health.
What date did he view this?
Give me 1 second. Sorry, just trying to find the right file here. This was done on January 4th, 2024.
Well, it was backfilled back in what, September or October, so he clearly didn't see it. In the
All right,
picture.
he issued the plan then. I'm not sure when he came out. I mean, I don't understand. We're not here for a Board of Health meeting. We're here for a conservation meeting. And what I can tell you is that I had a septic engineer come out as a result of Jeff Kane not being available and holding us up for months at a time. I had a separate engineer come out, certify the system, approved it, did an as-built, submitted it to the Board of Health. They approved it and gave us a COC on the system. We put it in legally per Title V regulations. There shouldn't be any question as to, we shouldn't even be talking about this. This is an approved plan that was certified by a septic engineer. What we're here to talk about is a wall that we designed that I had no direct guidance on this plan. It says block retaining wall designed and typed by others. We chose to go with a natural wall, which I've done hundreds of times in my career. We put the poly liner in. It was right here. You can see that he located the poly liner per the plan. And I had an engineer sign off on the wall. Now, if you're telling me that you're unhappy with the engineered letter, I can have Bowden engineer revisit it and see if he feels it's suitable to retain the leach field and the septic system and amend the letter. If that's what you're asking me to do, I'm happy to ask Bowden to do that. But I'm not exactly sure what else you need me to do here.
To show compliance with the plan that was approved, notwithstanding the building department, notwithstanding the Board of Health, we issued a plan that was approved by an engineer with whom we have dealt with for many, many years.
And that's fine.
And we find him to be credible. We are now looking at communications, and all commission members have copies of the communications between you and Jeff Kane. And it appears that he was available. He did go. In fact, there are actually 5 items, and I only got to number 1. And he said, essentially, as I read this, I can't approve this plan because you didn't do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, piping from the foundation to the D box should have no 90, I assume, degree elbows, 45-degree bends per plan. 3, all piping should be hunched along its entirety before backfilling to prevent differential settlement or deflection caused by unsupported pipe, evident at sewer out of septic tank. Number 4, vent not installed. Number 5, infiltrated chambers are not designed for filter fabric to be draped or wrapped around chambers. Fabric needs to be removed or manufacturer's certification provided that this installation method is acceptable for septic applications.
Yep.
Overall, the system is set approximately 1 foot above design elevations between foundation invert at plus 1.39 feet to D-box out invert at 0.80 feet. When final backfill is placed, care will be needed to ensure minimum cover heights are achieved. These are 6 red flags to us.
Yeah, and
we
with all
need
due
somebody
respect,
to say that you're in compliance, because right now you are out of compliance.
with all due respect, Mr. Kiernan, I had somebody out to check that we were in compliance with Title V regulations. His name is Terrence McSweeney from McSweeney Associates, and he approved the plan that we put in the ground. He approved the system that we put in the ground. He submitted the as-built, and it was approved on the 28th of January by the Board of Health. I do not need to answer to Jeff Kane.
You need to answer to us, sir.
Jeff Kane can have his opinions on how we did what we did. At the end of the day, as long as we are in compliance with Title V, which we are, and it's signed off, there shouldn't be any questions here. Just
There
because
are
Jeff Kane,
questions. You are
just
out of
because Jeff
compliance.
Kane has an opinion of how things should be done doesn't mean they have to be done that way to comply.
They have to be done in accordance with the plan that we approve.
And that's fine. And you also weren't out to inspect it either. You don't know, the vent is in place. The piping was changed. The coverage was done correctly. The liner was done. We are not in a Board of Health meeting. We are
in a Conservation Commission meeting, sir. You are out of compliance, and it sounds like you're refusing to attempt to get back into compliance.
I don't know why I'm out of compliance when I have engineers that have signed off on it.
They haven't signed off on the 6 items that I just read to you.
They signed off with an as-built and submitted the sign-off to Board of Health.
Not to us, sir. You are out of compliance. I don't know how else to say it any more plainly. You
So
are
I'm
out
not
of
exactly
compliance.
sure what else to do to satisfy what you want, because
Put it
I have
back
a
into
sys-
compliance.
I have a system in place and signed off.
Put it back into compliance with our specifications that
But-
you refuse to abide by, even when your own engineer told you that you had to
First
do
of all, he was not my engineer. I adopted the engineer, and I used an engineer that I use all the time. I'm using him right now on a job. I've
All right.
never had a problem with Terrence McSweeney. If you need me to have him write a letter stating that it's in compliance with Title V, I'm happy to do so.
That's not what we're talking about. We're getting you into compliance with the Conservation Commission.
Okay,
Please
but I-
put aside the Board of Health, at least temporarily. Please put aside the Building Department. You are before the Conservation Commission. We gave you an approved plan that came to us from an engineer that we respect. He said you were out of compliance. We say you're out of compliance. Your
Again,
opportunity
you are
now
listening
is-
to an engineer.
Yes,
You are
sir, will listen to what I say, because the record is going to be clear if we're here all night. Your obligation to the homeowner is to put them back into compliance.
But I don't understand forgive me if I'm being naive. I've had a certified Massachusetts licensed septic designer and engineer sign off on this septic because I chose not to work with Jeff Kane. I have the right to hire any engineer I want. I chose not to hire Jeff Kane because of difference of opinion and his unavailability. I brought in someone else so we could actually get this thing done. We got it done, and I had it signed off.
Got it. Okay. I know your position. I think you know mine. Other
No, I
members of the
don't
commission.
know yours. I don't know your position because I had it signed off.
You are obligated by law
And
to
I have
comply
done that.
with the
The Board of
approved
Health has
plan.
given me
You did
a
not.
certificate of compliance.
You can talk over me all you want. It's just going to prolong tonight's meeting.
I'm happy to be on this call for
Dr.
5 hours.
Strom, do you have
frankly,
something
on
that
it
you'd like to
because
say? Because PJ is not advancing your case very well.
I apologize. I have one thing to say, which is when we hired Jeff Kane for the job, that was not, first of all, that was not PJ's decision. That was our decision. And that was solely based on the fact that he had looked and been the developer for the site engineer for the other sites on the street, not because of specific skill set to that regard. I do think that Steve Ives has had a chance to go out and visit the property as well. And, I don't know if sort of a visit to the property could have sort of helped in this circumstance to understand. But obviously, unfortunately, the septic is a little over my head from that perspective. But I just wanted to add those couple of details.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Have you had an opportunity to see it now? Granted, it's, backfilled and the wall is in place, or the rock wall is in place. Do you have any comments or thoughts on this, Steve?
Yes, I'd like to add a issue. I don't see anywhere on the plan a as-built for the small drain when it fills up in 25 years of time. They'll never find it. The small drain that runs from the small catch basin to the corner of the house. That would be the northeast corner. So it's not on the plan. We're missing a line on the plan, which is very important.
that is a result of Jeff Kane's as-built that he provided.
How could it be Jeff Kane's as-built?
Because
Didn't Mr.
this
McSweeney do the as-built?
No, so I had McSweeney do the septic as-built. Previous to that, or toward the end of the project, when we needed the as-built for the house itself, Jeff was the only one that had the files, and we asked him to come out and do the final as-built of the house and the wall and everything else on the property. We did not ask him.
Let me ask you this then.
Yep.
Was the catch basin installed when Jeff came out?
It's right in front of you. Yes.
Well, I see it there. So why isn't there a line?
I don't know.
Okay,
That's
so it's deficient.
Jeff Kane
is
decided
deficient.
not to put those lines in.
Sir, if you're not working with Jeff Kane anymore, you can't blame him for something that's not on your plan.
But he did this plan. Listen, guys, all I know is that we have produced an amazing project for my client and for the town. We've been in accordance with, we have been very cooperative. Steve, you can even say we've had multiple phone calls about issues that people have called, i.e. Todd Hamilton has called to complain about us and our site. And we've never been out of compliance. We've always been cooperative. We have been rigorous with our erosion control. We have been clean as a button over there. We've done everything we need to do. And I've been nothing but cooperative along this entire thing. I provided as-built. I have a certificate of compliance from the health department. I have an engineer's report. I think, the bigger issue here is that I'm up against Jeff and Todd, who are in bed with everybody on this call. and they don't like,
Oh, my.
and that's fine.
PJ, you're killing yourself. You're killing yourself.
That's fine. But
Dr.
you and I
Straub, you better
both
get your
know-
agent in control.
All right, I'm going to stop talking, but what I can tell you is that the bigger issue here, let's talk about the runoff from the street. What are we going to do about the hundreds of gallons of water that come out of that catch basin into my client's property?
Well, I could jump to that and we can return to this issue. If I jump to that, at our last public meeting, I asked you, in your view, whose responsibility it was to clean the detention basin, which is clearly filled with debris and sediment. And you said it was the developer. I then reached out to Attorney Marion McKettrick, and she provided to us, and the commission members now have a copy of a letter to you in January of this year, but it incorporated by reference, and we have copies of the letter from December of 2022 that has been recorded in the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. It says that the homeowners are now in charge of the homeowners association, and the responsibility for cleaning that detention basin belongs to the homeowners association, at least per what has been recorded in the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. It is not the developer's responsibility to clean it. It is the homeowners association. And you'll note on our agenda tonight that we have some folks upstream from you, and we are equally as concerned as the Strom family about getting that cleaned. But I don't think you can put that back onto the developer.
That is, first of all, was not me. That, whatever, who cares? All I know is that today I was there and it was full again.
I agree. Dr. Strom?
Yeah, what I was going to say is that is a problem. If it is the homeowners association, we have not yet had a meeting of the homeowners association. There was an expectation that Town of Hamilton was going to finally finish the road once everything was done with the construction of the houses on the street as well, which I don't believe sort of final paving has been done. And
I believe you're correct in what you just said.
Yeah, and so my concerns are about that catch basin, in that we have, if it is our responsibility as an HOA, none of us know that, and because there wasn't a clear communication to us, and we don't know how to get in touch with even the other people in the street to have a HOA committee, other than walking house to house and leaving letters, which might be what we have to do. I think this whole circumstance is unfortunate. I do think, we specifically chose a design that was unfortunately a little hard to pull off from a site work standpoint, because we wanted to be close to the conservation to enjoy the beauty of the natural scenery around us. And, I know that we've been communicating with Steve back and forth throughout this, and I've tried to be open as much as we can with the process. And so we want to rectify any situation, and want to understand what that would look like, and how we can ultimately set that right. But we also are concerned about in general the basin, and as you can see, some of the other properties on the street, and to the extent that they cause runoff that ultimately runs down the street towards the angle, and then ultimately out of onto our property. And thankfully for the property, it's not running directly into the forest.
No, you are in a beautiful spot, and Steve Ivas has reported that you've been courteous and cooperative throughout his conversations with you. And I join with you. I'd like to get this thing fixed, both the detention basin and the appropriate construction of the leaching field and septic system. So I'll entertain some questions or comments or ideas for resolution from commission members. One of the things we might think about is that we might need to revert to the statute, Chapter 44, Section 53G, to retain an engineer. But Dr. Strom, I have to alert you, there's a statute puts the cost of that onto the applicant. And it's clear from some of the statements made that you think that Jeff Kane would not be an appropriate person. He is somebody that we know and have relied upon in the past over the last several decades, actually. But if it's appropriate to find another engineer to advise the commission, I am very concerned that it looks like there are 6 points that the system is out of compliance with the Conservation Commission. And I'd like to hear what the other commissioners think about that as an avenue towards resolution. Any thoughts, comments? Arthur, Hans, Wendy, Tom? Dr. Strom, go ahead. You can.
I just don't know for what it's worth to the commission. This has overall been a very expensive process for us, as you might imagine. And so the large retaining wall, as the way it was set out, was done so in a way so that we could be juxtaposed looking out onto the forest. The challenge with that is it incurred an enormous expense, putting a concrete wall, et cetera. And so the decision from a Boulder standpoint was made to reduce costs and also for aesthetic to pull in the beauty of the natural surrounding. And it is very, but to the extent that what we need is needed to be rectified, I just want to hope that this commission is sensitive to the cost that has already been incurred at this point in time.
We are sensitive to that.
Thank you.
So in my opinion, having an outside engineer come in and provide input on the level of compliance against the notice of intent application and the order of conditions that were issued is probably a pretty good way to get you back in compliance in a pretty expeditious way. Without having to deal with the back and forth between the prior engineer and I don't know if your builder is also an engineer, but there have been changes to your stormwater system. There are specific things that were noted that weren't in compliance with the permit. So, in my opinion, that seems like an appropriate path forward to, at least get an opinion on. Well, at least flag what is inconsistent with the original application, and then also to provide an opinion on whether or not the design changes are going to be more problematic, or if they're consistent and the engineering works out.
Tom?
I would like to say I agree exactly with what Hans said there, and sort of following your lead about Kane, yeah, I think you would be a good person to review the existing condition. I also am curious about the drain in the middle of the cul-de-sac that fills up with water. Was that supposed to drain anywhere else other than overflow down the driveway? In other words, is there like a buried pipe associated with it?
Tom, we approved that back before the lots were developed, when the infrastructure first went. And I don't recall a drain. I thought it was, and I think it will still work if it's kept clean, that it's just a recharge facility to slow it down, but it was not designed to overtop. I don't believe there's a pipe in it, but I could be wrong on that. Steve, Philip, you might be able to check that if you go back into the file.
Mr. Chairman, I was under the impression that there's a drain in that connects to the down gradient retention or detention basin. It's down gradient at the northeast corner of the site.
I can answer this question for you. So the drain in the center that gets clogged leads to a large pipe that goes between 24 Wentworth Farm and 23 Wentworth Farm along the property line. So if I share my screen again, I could show you exactly where it goes.
Yeah. And it goes down into the detention pond.
Correct. Can you see that?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet.
There we go.
And I just have one question about
There's an easement right
HOA,
here.
if you don't mind, sir. In the HOA, there should be, when you purchase your house, you should get incorporation documents or something that brings you into the HOA that explains the requirements. And related to that, for the development, there should be an operation and maintenance plan under the stormwater management standards. That should specifically call out what's supposed to be required for that system. Sir, you can continue now what you were saying. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay. So in between the two properties, there's actually an easement that's not marked super clearly on this plan. But right here, this dotted line and this dotted line, there's a 10-foot or 15-foot easement down into the woods, and this drains down into there.
There's a pipe through there.
There's a pipe through there, yes.
That was my question. There's very little drainage infrastructure on any plans we've seen, so I really don't understand how it works. Like the drain that you put in, how does that get under the house and downhill?
We just did simple rain drains, so all the leaders go into 4-inch PVC pipes on every corner, and they float around to this chamber in the back. It's a Cultec chamber that was designed by Jeff. Where is it here? Right here, the Cultec 100 HD. So this we installed per the plan in the backyard, right behind the patio, and all the pipes from the corners of the home and the 2 drains go into that per the plan.
And you added the driveway, sort of. Well,
Yeah, I
I
added the additional drain in the middle of the driveway. Yes.
All right. It's hard to tell because, as Steve said, there are no lines connecting these things.
The other thing I suggest is we can walk out there and do a site visit and walk through the whole thing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, that still doesn't provide an as-built plan that shows where the drainage is. You need that. Again, 25 years in the future.
I'm happy to do that for you.
When it doesn't work any longer, you're going to want to know where those lines are.
It sounds like it's already not working, so yeah, I'd like to see that. But I'm not sure that would normally be on this plan or the adjoining property owners. It sounds like it's going right down the property line.
Yes.
Yeah, that would obviously be out of our jurisdiction. That would be the plans for the neighborhood itself. And like I said, I'm happy to have an engineer update. We took measurements and located the Cultec chamber ourselves, so we could easily dig it up or show them where it is, and they could locate it and locate all the pipes on a plan for our plan. And that I'm perfectly fine doing.
All right, why don't we do this? Why don't you, if you could update the plan just to put the lines that you have, like, the new catch basin in the driveway going to what I'll say is the right of the house, but it would be at the top of the drawing as we're looking at it here. And then around back and connecting to the Cultec chamber, that would be helpful. And then Philip, if you can look back, and Steve, you might be able to look back and find the original neighborhood plan and see whether or not that pipe drain from the detention basin is shown on that. And if it's running down the property line, we'll at least know where it is. And then we can check, we may need a site walk there to see what the outfall looks like. If there's a level spreader or it's just a discharge opening. I have no idea what it is. But it sounds like that water's not getting out of the detention basin for whatever reason. And then I don't know what else to say. Hans, you're correct that all of the deed conveyances should have a reference to the homeowners association and the O&M plan, which would be, as I understand it from Marion McKettrick's correspondence, would be the obligation of the homeowners association. So maybe we could all take a look for that and update it. And then in the meantime, I think and maybe I'm reading between the lines because not everybody spoke, but I think there's a consensus here that we should utilize an engineer different from, I'm sorry,
Nick
it is
Sweeney?
Bowden,
Yes.
different from Bowden Engineering and different from Jeff Kane. And pursuant to the statute, we'll we typically seek about 3 people. I have absolutely no one in mind, but we sent out a request for proposal. We've done this on many of the last projects that we've reviewed. We did it at the Lower Guild Road field. We did it on the Canton Avenue 40B project at 648, 652 Canton Avenue. We did it on the 107, 111 Highland Street. It's a standard procedure. And we will, Dr. Strom, I did hear you say, I know you're being cost sensitive, and we try to be cost sensitive as well. And we'll come up with an engineer to give us some advice on whether or not the deficiencies that were pointed out in the September 15th letter are correctable, or whether they've been responded to.
May I just ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry to interrupt. We've used Merrill Engineering out of Hanover in the past and have had good experiences working with them. Is that somebody who would be reasonable for this commission to approve?
We've used Merrill on a number of occasions. It would be one of several we could. Yeah, we have no interest in directing it one way, but our standard procedure, and it's pursuant to municipal bid laws, we have to ask several parties to make it. But they've got a good reputation.
Okay.
All right. Any other? I don't think we need. Well, maybe we do need a vote on this.
John?
Yes.
I just wanted to chime in on a couple of things. I came out pretty much the same place as Hans, and think that all of the issues that were mentioned should be documented so that they can go to the new engineer, so that that party can very clearly understand what all of the issues are. They should also have, I would think, all of the past correspondence, so that they have a clear understanding of the situation that they'll be remediating. I wanted to ask if we as a conservation commission have a responsibility to address the drainage problem that is at the cul-de-sac as it impacts upon any of the residences in that area, distinct from what might be the responsibility of any individual property owner. And then I did want to ask the applicant, with respect to the question or the point made about flooding continuing in the garage, if that flooding was coming in from the outside as sheet water, or whether it was due to an elevation in groundwater seeping up through the foundation into the garage. I'd like to know that clarification.
It's a good question. I think it is coming under the garage, under the garage doors specifically. But it's just a small amount at this point in time, and I believe there's a plan to put a sort of a rubber sealant in the.
Okay. I was hoping that would be your answer anticipated. Is that related to the issue with the drain?
Yeah, I think it's related to the drain in the middle of the.
So John, do we have a
not the drain on our property, the drain in the.
Exactly, that's what I was referring to too. And do we have an opportunity to go out to the HOA, the homeowners association, with respect to the clarification of responsibility and the mitigation of that situation?
Yes, it's a legal entity.
Yeah.
And, we could issue an enforcement order to the homeowners association, just as we have to number 20 and number 12. Right.
I would like to make that a recommendation for us.
All right. That's going to put the pressure on you, Dr. Straw, there, to get your neighbors organized. And I know some of them aren't even there. But yes, I
legal
agree.
Representation, John, wouldn't we go to their attorney?
If they have one.
Yeah, we haven't formally have any meetings. Some of the challenge of this is that it's difficult to know who to contact or how to have an initial meeting, because we've never been connected. But that is, I don't know what the process is formally for that, but happy to.
We have an understanding that these are two distinct issues. They're related, but they're distinct.
Yeah.
Correct. Well, the next two items.
It seems as though some of the individual homeowners are being injured by this.
Yes.
And conservation is being injured by this.
Yes. And it's on our agenda. The next two items are exactly them.
Yep.
So I think this might be an opportunity. You might want to stay on the call, Dr. Strom, because I think we're going to be talking to some of your neighbors in short order. But to the extent that we need a vote, I would propose a motion to utilize Chapter 44, Section 53G, and to retain a consulting engineer to assist us in resolving the conflict between, to the extent there is a conflict between Bowden Engineering, that we've got a submission from Paul Bonarigo regarding the wall only, and then the concerns that were voiced, I think 6 numbered concerns voiced by Jeff Kane. So we need some expert advice in that arena. So is there a second? I'll make the motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Ann. Any discussion? Individual vote. Hang on, let me just get back to my sheet here. Arthur Doyle, how do you vote, sir?
Yes.
Hans? How do you vote, Hans? You're on
Yes,
mute.
sorry, couldn't find the mute
Thanks.
button.
All right, Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Wendy, how do you vote?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, and I vote yes as well, John Kiernan. All right, we'll get that underway, and we will include Merrill Engineering as one of the recipients of our request for a proposal. And then we should probably wait for that. I think that a site visit would be important, but I don't want to get ahead of it because we're going to need the corrected plans with the lines included that both Steve Ibis and Hans have requested. So if you could get working on that, I don't know if Dr. Strom, you or PJ or who will run that to ground, but if you could get us a new plan with those drainage, and if you get anything, the main drainage pipe going from the detention system, we'll look for that as well. But if you can find it and put that on the plan, it would be great. If not, we'll find it in the original neighborhood design as well. All right, so why don't we, with that, and hopefully we'll have made some progress, so we'll have at least the first step done before our next meeting in, what is the date of our next meeting, Steve? Do you know?
11 April.
Done. All right, any other comments, suggestions, concerns? All right, we'll continue this, and we've all got our homework set out for us. So we'll probably convene, we'll talk to each other, communicate before then, but at least we'll be back in session on the 11th of April. All right, thank you very much, all. Next on the agenda is number 20 Wentworth Farm Road. Next door. I hope we have somebody presenting tonight.
I hope so too, but I don't know. I talked to the homeowner directly.
And isn't this, and for the public's benefit, we've given 3 notifications to the homeowner, 2 at the 20 Wentworth Farm, and then 1 at 84 Reservation Road, and they were served by the constable for the town of Milton in hand. So, and didn't you get a call after that, Philip?
He actually came in. I spoke to him one-on-one, and I showed him that he had just come back from Florida, so he hadn't seen the letter. But I showed him the letter that I sent him. And he said he'd come. His wife has a Zoom account. That was the problem the last time. he thought the meetings were live. And he told me on a phone message that he didn't have a Zoom account. But now he told me, I saw him live and he said his wife has a Zoom account. I mean, all they have to do is go on the town website and, hit it and be in.
The link is right there.
Right.
Wow, you can see how this is difficult. I don't see Dr. Strom and his wife, and I didn't mean to be discourteous, but I think she uses a different last name than he does. But I don't see them on the screen any longer.
The pictures we got today that were sent around, were they from this lot where a new compost sock had been installed?
No, that's the number 5. Tom.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
Steve, you were a little faint there. Can you say that again?
Oh, sorry, that was number 5. The next issue.
Okay, thanks.
Certainly.
So I know at our last meeting, Ingrid was very concerned with the procedure of making sure notice was appropriate. That's why we used the constable. Now we know it's been done. That's the 3rd time. Plus, he's talked to Philip in person. I'm stumped. I guess we should just start imposing the fine and have the constable do it again. Good Lord. So I propose a motion to serve him once again via the constable. And in that say that the fine is ongoing. I think that should perhaps be a separate motion. But by way of notice, 2 parts to the motion. First one, notice via the constable. And the second part is that we should inform him that we are indeed imposing a fine of $300 a day, and that fine is accumulating. And if you'd like to address that, he needs to come before the commission on April 11th.
John, what's the date that the fine goes into effect? Is that effective today because there's no show?
No, it started. It started before. I've got. If you take a look at the letter that Philip sent, the commission voted on Tuesday, February 20th, to enforce a fine of $300 per day per violation.
Okay.
So it started on February 20th. I think we had an open, candid discussion that we could reassess the fine.
That's
depending upon his level of cooperation and us actually getting it fixed. I mean, that's our job, to get it fixed. Fine doesn't help us other than to perhaps motivate him to get it done. Good Lord. So I think the notice from the constable should say that the fine was voted to start on February 20th, which is in the letter, which is in my hand, that was served by the constable, and that the fine, I think the new letter, Philip, should say that the fine continues to accumulate at $300 a day.
Effective February 20th.
Yes, correct.
That's what I was looking for.
Right.
You communicated about a fine on the 20th, but we didn't say in that it was effective as of that date, and I just wanted to clarify that so that everybody was.
All right. Well, it's certainly clear now. So that's the motion, both by way of notice and the accumulating fine effective February 20th. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thanks, Hans. Any discussion? Hearing none. Arthur Doyle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Hans van Linken, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tom Palmer, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wendy Capo, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I, John Kieran, vote yes as well. So that's unanimous. Thanks. So now let's move on to number 5, which is enforcement order of condition at 12 Wentworth Farm. And I hope we do. Allison Kessner. Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Well,
Hi.
A bona fide
Hi.
welcome. I'm glad you're here.
Yes, thank you for having me. I am here for my husband and myself as well. Justin, unfortunately, is traveling this week. and has been out of town quite often. And I wanted to respond to the letter that we received, and he sends along his apologies for not opening the mail while he was away. I now know I need to promptly address letters of this nature. I'm joined by Pete Langen of Eagle Farms, and some remedies were put into place, so he can speak to a little bit more in detail about that, but we are here to respond to the letters.
Thank you very much. Pete, do you want to address the commission?
Yes, how you doing? I'm Pete Langen with Eagle Farm, and as soon as we were notified, we are going to be doing the finish landscape construction.
Hey, Pete, you're a little hard to hear. Can you get closer to your mic?
Okay. Is that any
That's better.
better?
That's better.
Okay. Sorry, I think I had my hand over the microphone. Okay, so I am Pete Langen with Eagle Farms, and we've been hired by the property owners, Justin and Allison, and we're going to be doing the complete finished landscape on their project. And we did get started in it in late fall, and we were hoping to get everything done before the winter came in, but it came a little earlier. She did notify us of the situation of some runoff going onto the road. We did have finished loom put down, so there was a minimal stuff that did go down to the edge of the road. We immediately went out, put in some 12-inch compost sock completely around it, and I know my coworker Jason had met with Steve today, or spoke with Steve, and also sent him some updated photos. So I think we have the situation fully under control and everything's fully stabilized. And we do plan on wrapping up the complete landscape this spring. I know the developer does have some drainage to do still out back, but for the most part, everything out front is finished, graded, and ready for seed. So, and I believe we've got everything under control. Everything's clean, clear, and anything else you need, we'd be glad to take care of.
Steve, did you do an inspection today and at other times?
Actually, I did an inspection yesterday, and then Jason was kind enough to give me a call today, and I suggested that he get some larger silt stock put down on the site because the drainage went over the existing silt stock. The black wasn't effective. So the new silt stock is a green color. You may have seen those photos that I emailed around today.
Yes, I did.
Okay, very good. So they look fine to me, and they're staked down as well, so they're not going anywhere. What was happening was at the corners, the drainage was going over the silt sock itself, and then down the street, not toward 24, but toward the stream at the beginning of the street and the bridge. So it was going in the other direction to the south. But it looks like that should do the trick, barring any unforeseen issues with snow plows or anything like that.
All right, that's good news.
I think they've corrected it just fine.
All right, and for the public's benefit, the first time I saw this was January 13th, and I think we sent out the enforcement order on the holiday was the 15th, so I think it went out on the 16th of January. And then I inspected it again a couple of weeks later, and we sent out a second one. And Mr. Kessner called me right away and he said he had been traveling and missed the first one, but he'd respond immediately. He said he's going to Eagle Farm, and he talked to Jason. And lo and behold, the smallest silk sock was put in place right away. So he did respond to granted it was the second one, but he said he was traveling and he missed the first one that had been delivered by DPW. So Mr. Kessner was, and Allison as well, you've been responsive to this. And thank you for upgrading, because at our last meeting, I think there was a comment that the silt sock might be too small. So indeed, they changed it, made it larger and more effective. So I thank you for that. And Allison, can I ask you, were you here on the Zoom call and hear the discussion about the homeowners association?
Earlier tonight? Yes, I was.
Yes. Okay. All right. So there's going to be some pressure on the homeowners association, because that that water detention basin at the end of the cul-de-sac is a disaster right
Yeah.
now. So that we are going to
Yeah.
be looking to the homeowners so you could spread the word that, you know, we're looking for some kind of a response to get the operation and maintenance plan up and running. And
Okay.
I think that Justin Stern is going to be out talking to people, and you might as well, just to get the neighborhood coordinated. It's not a big deal, but it's an important deal. In
I
terms
think
of
that
getting it clean.
Yeah, I think that tonight's meeting was surely enough to sort of get the ball rolling on that. And we hadn't been in coordination, and now we certainly will. So next steps, getting together and forming that. So hopefully by the next meeting.
Good news. That's good news. Thank you for your courtesy and cooperation on that. Thank you. Any questions from commissioners? Comments? Yes.
So I just had a question about, you know, whether or not the silt sock as a perimeter control is sufficient, or if there's anything else that needs to be done to kind of stabilize what the source of the water is coming across. And, you know, if you need to utilize some sort of tackifier or, you know, some hay mulch or something like that to keep the material from continuing to travel off before the silt sock has to do its job. You know, it's a good time to maybe get some early, you know, stabilization seed down. It's very inexpensive, but, you know, as we get the warm up, at least you'll get something that'll start to grow, maybe a annual rye or something that won't affect what your ultimate landscape will look like, but it'll at least hold the surface material in place a little bit better, as opposed to just relying on the silt sock, which is at the sort of the toe of the slope. Just a thought, it's just a suggestion in terms of stabilization.
It's a good one.
Yes, I agree entirely.
Did we just lose Pete? Pete, can you respond to that? Looks like are you back?
He's connecting again.
Okay, good. Pete, did you hear that? And can you respond whether or not there's some kind of early growth
sorry
grass?
about that. I just lost connection. So yes, well, we're probably within the next 30 days, we're going to have lawn in there. So
Yeah.
I think we're off to an early spring anyway. So I think within 30 days, it's going to be stabilized with seed. We're going to hide the seed over there. So I think we'll be, we can easily maintain any runoff prior to that. But we fully expect to have the lawn fully stabilized by then.
Yeah, if you do hydro seed, I highly recommend utilizing a tackifier to include that to keep the stuff stuck on top. So
Yeah, correct. And we'll monitor it, especially after any rainfall or anything like that. So it's not that the grade isn't too substantial over there, but obviously the winter is a whole different deal. So I feel pretty confident we'll get this thing fully under control and get it stabilized.
All right, is that good, Hans? All right, any other comments, suggestions? Wendy, Tom? Arthur?
Just a side note. I went and looked at Wentworth Farm Road. I was driving by, I guess it was yesterday, and I noticed as you go over the bridge, the first lot on the right doesn't have a house. I think it might have a foundation on it. Has a number of enormous boulders and some piping, I think, as well. Is that a house lot? Is my question, and who's responsible for keeping the runoff on that lot?
Todd, that's a great question, and that's a question that I had on my two inspections, one on the 13th, and I think the second one was, I don't know, somewhere around the 27th or 28th. And I went there specifically because I saw piles of soil, and I thought, oh, I bet that's going to run off. But it doesn't. And and I actually went in there. I was looking for some kind of a silt fence, but what I found was not gravel, but they're pretty large stones. And there was like a barrier of stones. And I didn't see anything that had gone onto the street, nothing. And I don't know if that was an elevation issue or if it was a result of the stones that have been placed there, the gravel, but it worked because I went back twice on rainstorms. And on neither occasion did I see any kind of erosion or sedimentation on the street. Nothing.
And the reason for that is that the street is slightly elevated above that lot at the street. That's very simple. You can see that if you walk it.
Well, I thank you both. That was my question.
Yep.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. And then I think I think we're good to go. Allison, we thank you very much for your attendance tonight and taking care of it at our request.
Thank
All
you
right.
all.
Thanks all. All right. Good night. That was number 12. So we are now up to additional business. And I think we've got I had asked Charles Bosworth to join us tonight because of some concerns at the ice house. I think we've seen a lot of photographs, or at least I have, and I think most of them have passed around. Charlie, good evening.
Good evening.
And just by way of history, I talked last Saturday. We had some significant rain, and Hans, I think, had seen some sedimentation for the second time going into Pine Tree Brook, and he and I spoke, and it looked like there had been a second breakout because the first one was back on that January 13th. And on that evening, both Hans and I walked the property and saw the breakout. And indeed, there was erosion going into Pine Tree Brook. I reached out to Charlie Bosworth that Saturday night. In fact, I think I got you on an airplane sitting in Washington, D.C. And he said, I'll be down there and we'll fix it right away. I don't know if you went Sunday or Monday, but you did respond. And it seemed to be fixed, or so I thought. And then again, we had a breakout this past Saturday. But just by serendipity, I guess, Steve, you've been out there recently, haven't you?
Yes, as recently as, let me think, yesterday.
Yesterday. But were you there before this most recent breakout?
Yes, I was there on Friday, actually, before the rain on Saturday.
And how did it look to you on Friday before the rain?
Friday looked fine. Everything was almost dry. And then Saturday it rained. And what happens there is that the rain is directed to I would say that's the northwest corner of the site. Would you agree with that, Charlie?
Yes, Steve.
Right. So everything goes to the northwest corner. So when you get rain over that large site and it goes down to the northwest corner, obviously there wasn't enough volume to contain the rain that fell on Saturday. And so it moved away off site again.
Yeah, the pictures that Hans took and shared looked pretty significant. That looked like a lot of water. And I didn't know, and I'll defer to the civil engineers and those with more experience than I, but is this a situation where there should be a dewatering system in place to make sure the water doesn't gather in an area where it can break through the erosion controls? And perhaps some kind of a filtration component? That's an honest question. And I'll Hans, I don't know, I know you've had some experience in this area.
Yeah, and I actually spoke to Mr. Bosworth's one of his site personnel the last time I was out there. I suggested to him to have some kind of dewatering pit that would channel the water up to the back portion of the site on the opposite side of the soil pile, where it could be slowly where you could set up a dewatering bag and slowly allow the water to filter through the dewatering bag and into at least a buffer, as opposed to directly into the wetland, like where it was breaking through. He indicated to me that was a good idea, but I don't know if, to what extent he followed up on it. I had also suggested to him at the time to install the silt fence as opposed to just the straw wattles, which were not sufficient to deal with the water at the time. I had made some specific suggestions as to the how the silt fence needs to be installed. And to try and make sure that it was tight and consistent along the way. He did install it the entire length that I suggested, and it looks to had functioned for a bit until the most recent rain event.
And Hans, had he installed the 6 to 8 feet of gravel right adjacent to the northerly fence?
I don't think I ever discussed the installation of gravel.
Yeah, it
with-
looks like it was a 1 inch minus that is installed right now about 6 or 8 feet wide. That was there yesterday when I stopped by. I'm not sure
if that was
why that was done, frankly,
Well,
because
that-
water will
that-
move right through that.
Well, Charlie, you can answer that because I spoke to you on Sunday afternoon and you said you were going to jump on it right away. Tell us what you did.
So we went in and cleaned the area of the erosion control, which was the erosion control sock and the silt fence that's up against the construction fence. We cleaned that area. We placed a 6-foot wide strip of 3/4 inch stone.
Right.
And in front of that 6-inch strip, we put another silt fence line with the erosion control sock in front of it. So we have 2 doubled up lines now. The reason that we placed the stone between these 2 erosion control lines is, in our experience, when we get water like we did on the 13th of January and then the other night, it slows down the flow of the water. And it doesn't put the pressure on the secondary set of erosion control measures. So in our experience, we can usually slow down the flow when we put in a strip like that. Sometimes we do it with riprap, 3 to 5 inch stone. We actually used 3/4 stone in this instance.
Steve, can you screen share that photograph?
I believe I can. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. One moment.
If I may add a little more clarity to the situation that in that
Sure.
location. Steve,
Yes.
you're familiar with the site, and we have a wetland replication area you and I had spoken about back in the fall.
Yes.
That is that specific location is where we're going to be replicating. So when we had the first breach in January, we did a similar situation where we put a 3/4 inch stone berm in front of the erosion control measures that are along the construction fence and a erosion control sock in front of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was recently in the past 2 or 3 weeks that we did additional work to tie in the water utility out in front of the garage, which is specifically in that location. That's why we lost the secondary measure of 3/4 inch stone, but it was just a berm. We didn't put in the full 6-foot length. And at that time, we had to pull the erosion control sock out of the way to do the utility work. So what occurred on Saturday night was we had one erosion control measure in place up against the construction fence, which was the silt fence and then the sock in front of it.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sorry, John, I cannot find that one photograph right now. Probably still on the camera somewhere.
John, are you looking for the pictures I sent you on Monday morning?
Yes, I am. Can you have those, Charlie?
I have them. I don't know how to share, but I'm sure I could figure it out.
I can get,
Steve,
I can give you,
Steve, I'm going
I
to
will
send
make
it to you right now.
okay.
It's a Gmail, right?
Yes, Steve Ibis at Gmail.
So right now, while we're waiting for the photographs, we have the erosion control measures that are up against the construction fence. A 1-foot layer of 3/4 inch stone that's about 6 feet wide. And then in front of that stone, we have siltation fence and erosion control sock.
So, Mr. Bosworth, that corner has been problematic throughout the project. It's anytime that we have a significant rain event, it floods down there. It's on the wetland side, outside of the property. It's actually at the point of almost breaking through the sort of improvised fill wall that's out there. And if you'll notice further down from the amount of flooding it's received, there's actually a number of trees that have gone down. So in my opinion, that problem's not going to go away until, the site's fully developed. I really think it would be in your best interest to have some kind of dewatering setup prepared in the event that we get additional rainfall like we have, to be able to have the water managed in a way that it's not going to continue to do damage to the environment.
Can you all see that now?
I don't see it.
No, not yet.
Huh. It says I'm screen sharing.
You
We're
are
looking at a folder called Milton 12 March.
Say again, Tom?
We're looking at a folder called Milton 12 March. I am
Okay,
anyway.
thank you.
On the
Yeah, no, I am,
left-hand
I
side.
am as well. So, Steve, I just sent you 2 emails. If you, I don't know if you can pull it off the email.
I tried. Yeah, I absolutely tried. That's exactly what I did. Extract to drive.
I just sent Steve and you, John, 2 photos that I took on 28 February of the erosion control on either side of the project.
Steve, the
How
problem
about
is
that?
you have the wrong window selected to share.
Okay.
I would stop sharing and then
Thanks.
activate it again.
And
That's
try to
fine.
do it again. Okay. I'm a DOS thinker, gentlemen and ladies,
We'll
in
try
a
to get
Windows
you through it.
world. Okay, let's see if we can find it again. That's not it. I'm gonna go back to
the
what's
left.
that? To the
So
left.
you have a folder dated 12 March.
Yes, but it's not in that, I don't think. But let's try it. Yeah, agenda is 1, 2, 3. No, it should just say 6 something.
If you go to your email and just file my email to you, I sent you a couple.
Yes.
You can put it in
Okay.
that Milton folder.
Right.
Like that, is that it right there at the top?
I don't think so. Let me just go back. Nope, that's the agenda in the folder.
No, I
No.
meant on the left where it says
Oh.
Milton, keep going down, 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 keep going down. Right there.
Yeah,
What's
that's the folder right there, John.
Okay.
Again, I'm a DOS thinker in a Windows world. It's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Hang on. Desktop.
Hans, have you seen the photos?
I have not.
I will send them.
Boy. Anybody tell me how to get to my email from here? I'm serious. What do you
I
don't
know
laugh.
how you.
Hans,
I don't
are you
know.
best at Gmail? Hans, Gmail?
Yeah, you can send it to the Gmail. That's fine.
And I'll give Hans the.
Oh, I
make him
can't.
a coast.
I'm on my work computer, so I can't get to my Gmail. You have to.
What's your work one?
My first name dot my last name at avantgrid.com.
Got it. Okay, I got it.
My son says I should take a remedial course, and I probably should. In just moving around. What the heck?
So, while we're waiting, Mr. Bosworth, I would also recommend having taking a look at some of the BMPs that are required under your SWIP, things like a stabilized construction entrance to knock some of the stuff coming off from the site. There's also a good amount of debris that's construction debris that's gone into the adjacent wetland and a couple other areas that I think would help to keep on top of the site in general.
I was disappointed in the housekeeping, Charlie. That's what he's talking about.
Agreed, Steve.
Yeah.
All right, there
That's
you go.
it.
That's
it right there.
Good. All right.
Okay.
So am I correct that that's what was installed yesterday, Charlie?
Yes, John.
Got it.
That's what I saw yesterday as well.
Okay.
So you can see on the right-hand side, we have the erosion control line, we'll call number 1 up against the construction fence. And then the 1 foot thick layer of 3/4 stone, and then another erosion control line to the left. Now, in this particular area, we're thinking of doing this, and Steve, we need to talk to you about this, but performing that wetland replication most likely in April or May. But I kind of need your guidance on that of when you think planting that replication area is best.
That depends on the weather. That's the problem.
Okay.
So you may have to do it twice. Just saying.
I'm just going to add that this is such a major improvement over the day before yesterday. When I was left on the site, this is really significant.
Yes, it is.
Better.
And we'll be able to maintain this now that the water work is done until we're ready to do the wetland replication.
Good.
Now, will this be sufficient without the dewatering pit that Hans was talking about? I mentioned it, but Hans, put more detail to it on the other side of the dirt pile, etc. Will this be sufficient that you don't need that, or should this be done in conjunction with the dewatering pit? And that question goes to both Charlie and to Hans.
We could always put a sump in front of the secondary erosion control materials where the silt fence and compost sock is on the left-hand side. And if we get in a situation where we have a major event, we could fire up a pump and pump it up to the southwest corner into some sort of silt bag.
Yes.
The reality of that is you're just recirculating dirty water, in my experience. And the entire site runs from south to north.
That's correct.
We have kept as much of the asphalt in place of the old driveway in order to mitigate increasing the silt that gets churned up and ends up in that water as it runs to this low area. The solids from the soil tend to stay suspended for quite a long time in any sort of water. They don't drop out very quickly. The other option we could try, and Steve, I'd be looking for your guidance on this, is maybe we could try spreading some flocculant in the 3/4 inch stone layer that would knock down the solids as they enter the stone.
Yes, that would be a very good idea, but I'm not sure if you could get the water and the flocculants. You need the surface area of the flock. Okay. And I'm not sure you'd get that unless you directed the water down a chute or down a little swale or something, you know.
I would suggest on using the flakes, not the blocks.
Sure. It works. The flock works very, very well. It's like magic, I say to a lot of folks. I've seen it work extremely
Yeah.
well.
Tell me what
But
it
there's
is and how it works.
What it does is it drops. I believe the flock adds weight to the small particles, and as a result, the small particles drop out right there where they are, and clean water goes along. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. Yep.
Yeah, have I described it properly? Yeah.
That's exactly how I would have said it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you need to have a lot of surface area available, either in the flock, for the water to contact that surface area. So doing it in a swale and putting flock blocks in a swale or flakes in a swale might work pretty well in this location.
Yeah, I think the challenge is we don't have any swales running to this location. It's all sheet flow.
Right. I'm well aware. So that's the issue.
Hans, what do you think both on the dewatering sump circulating dirty water and or the flock, whatever it's called, flocculants?
Mm-hmm.
So the filter bag will prevent the dirty water.
Sometimes, Hans, in this area, there are fines that pass through the filter bag.
Yeah.
So I've used 2 over at the Naval Air Station. Charlie, you might have seen those set up. And still they didn't work very well in sequence, in series.
Our experience is the same, Steve, with the material that we're dealing with. We run it through silt bags quite often. We're doing it down the street. It still comes out brown out of the bag.
Yep.
It doesn't come out clean.
Agreed.
Okay. The concern I have with this right here is that the stuff that's in the gravel, because that's not clean gravel, and when the water comes up, I mean, it's already halfway up that back line of silt fence. And so I'm just, when the last time I was out there and the rain event was a significant rain, but it wasn't crazy. It was already halfway up the silt fence. So I'm just, if there's a way that you can get the water away from that area to into an upland area, because that you can see where those stones are on the other side of the green fence, that just drops off, and then that's where your wetland is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, for clarification, that's double wash stone. So we didn't bring in any. So we were aware of the fact that we should probably put double wash in there.
Well, that's good.
What do you think about doubling up on top of that compost sock? We put another sock on top of that.
I'm not sure that'll do anything, Charlie, but the next step would be a frac tank. Just run it all through a frac tank. Put a pit in and run the water through a frac tank, and that might do it. That might help.
Pretty expensive.
Yes, it is, but it works.
Should we wait and see how this works first before we take a look at alternatives?
Sure.
That would be my suggestion. This is a significant value-added improvement from my perception based upon 2 visits to the site.
I mean, Charlie, I'd be happy to take a walk down at the next storm and check it out, see how it's functioning.
Yeah, and Hans, anytime you'd want to meet out there, the team has my number. I'm just down the street. I can meet you at any time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm literally across the street, so.
I think you might have met our superintendent a few times.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd be happy to take a look, see how well it's functioning.
Yeah, and if a day that it's not raining, I'm happy to meet up with you out there and say maybe we should try changing a couple of things, and we're happy to try whatever you think will work.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to let you guys do their job for the most part. Only when I see an issue. So.
Yeah.
All right, sounds like we've got a plan here. Thank you for responding as quickly as you did, Charlie. I appreciate this, and the photo looks like you took care of what needed to be taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Apologize for the inconvenience.
All right. Thanks all.
Thanks very much, Charlie.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Yep.
Next, under additional business, Steve, I think you said you had some other things.
Yes, I just wanted to inform the commission that we had a preliminary meeting among all the parties except for DEP for the 693 711 Randolph Ave project. There will be another reconstruction meeting. Hans is laughing. He understands exactly what's going on here. Somebody forgot, not myself, but the proponents forgot to contact DEP because they realized too late that this is a DEP superseding order of conditions that they're operating under, not a Milton Conservation Commission order of conditions. So we had a preliminary meeting, and during that meeting, the contractor said he had done this work of crossing a wetland similar to this before. And I said, where? And he said, 3 miles away from Milton at Balancing Rock Road in Canton. And if you want to go over and take a look, there are mature trees within about, well, there's closer than 10 feet. Balancing Rock Road, it's a big Toll Brothers development called, I've forgotten the name. It's a big development in Canton, literally 3 miles from Milton. Okay, so
Steve,
you can all go.
Just to confirm, DP required a third-party environmental.
He was there, Hans.
Yes.
Scott
Yes,
Morrison.
he was there.
Scott Morrison, Ecotech.
Who is
Ecotech.
now actually, he's now working for VHB. He just switched 3 weeks ago. Yeah, Scott Morrison, somebody who we respect, which is a good thing. So that was a good question, Hans.
Jim DeSalle was present.
Yes.
Column, what's his name? The GC excavator. I've got my notes around here somewhere.
Yeah. I
So
will
when is
send
that
you
work supposed
that
to start?
information. Sorry?
When is that work supposed to start?
Well, that was one of the issues that came up. Yeah, I was pushing for, low water mark. They were pushing for April. But the bottom line is it's weather dependent. It depends on if it's raining or not, because the rain will kill them with the water elevation.
And it's also dependent on when they can get a DEP staff person to attend the pre-construction meeting.
We're southeast region, right?
No.
No, we're
northeast.
Northeast.
We're northeast.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Yep. Pam Merrill signed the order.
Yeah.
Just FYI. Okay.
And just for information, go ahead. Sorry, Stephen.
Go right ahead, John.
Well, there was another person there, one of the abutters, whose name is Laura Murray Tran at 298 Highland Street. And she's been pushing for quite a while to make sure that there's an effort to save as many mature trees as possible. And she had asked me, a month or so ago about, is it in your order of conditions? And I said, we don't have one. We denied the permit. It went to the DEP superseding order of conditions. But we did some research, and in fact, it's under the Housing Appeals Committee result of the ZBA comprehensive permit. It's one of their provisions, number 25, I think, that says that thou shalt attempt to save all the mature trees as reasonably practicable. So we had a long discussion about what is reasonably practicable. And Paul Harland was there, and I think he was being sincere. He said, look, I'll work with you. She was very concerned with making sure there's a tree screening between her property and the nearest building, which is extremely close to her property limit. But the bottom line is, he said, I know that's my obligation. I will abide by it. I'll work with you. So that's about the best that she could get out of him. And we really, it wasn't a jurisdictional issue for us. It was more of a comprehensive permit housing Court of Appeals issue.
And if you look at the plans, you'll see that there's a big cut almost to the border, the property line there up the hill. Okay, so there aren't going to be many trees that survive that cut, in my opinion.
No, I agree.
Which is too bad, because there are some beautiful big trees there. Third issue, Harland Street.
One other thing about that, just so that everybody's aware, the construction access is going to be through the DPW yard. And we had some lengthy discussions about making sure that the equipment is not stored within our jurisdictional area and no refueling within our jurisdictional area. We also had a pretty candid discussion about, I think, I'll say my view, but it was, I think, our view, that although the design might have been, from an engineering perspective, technically possible, I thought it was going to be very difficult to do in the field because of the softness of the earth. And they're right on that 25-foot, 5,000 square feet that would require a MATV review. So that we put that on the table right away. And they said, and the excavator said, I know what you're talking about. It's soft earth. It's going to cave. Well, if we have to, we'll put in metal sheathing to maintain that line. But they are aware of it. And they're also aware of our skepticism that it can be done.
Yeah, they're going to have to keep that limit of work and limit of excavation lines
staked with 8-foot poles.
Entire duration of the project.
Right. Yeah, we recommended rebar, 8-foot rebar, to do that, which is silly, but that's what it'll take.
See it.
Right, exactly. So third item, evidently, we've got some beavers that have built a dam parallel to Harland Street on the down gradient side. I would call it about 200 feet away from the weir before you get to Unkley Road. Is that correct, Tom?
Can I share my screen? I got some pictures.
Please.
It looks like the host assembled. Try again. The host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Hang on a second. I'm trying to get there. There we go. I'm making you a co-host.
Okay.
Try again, please.
All right, I'm working on it. Do you see the beaver lodge?
Not yet.
It's coming
It's
up.
coming. There it is.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Whoa.
Wow.
That was taken from the berm on Unkley Road, but over the top of it, down the other side. So opposite Camp Sayre.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Looking in from Camp Sayre, you can't see Harland Street. The dam itself is to the left, just outside of the image.
Yes.
There's a portion of the dam. That's where it actually attaches to the existing flood storage dam behind Unquity Road.
Right.
And you see it's not built up very high, and yet it's still holding back like 12 inches of water.
Mhm.
And that dam goes another 100 feet. It goes past that lodge, leaving it to the right. And then it sort of bends further to the right, more parallel to Harland, but it never gets to Harland, and it's hard to see from Harland.
Yes, it is. Agreed.
Yeah, do you see that?
Yeah.
That's beaver meal. That's a alder stump, and that is at the base of the Unquity Road berm.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done that to like all the alders, but they have left alone the glossy buckthorn and gray birch.
Sure.
So they're definitely letting us know about their dietary preferences. So I think that's all I got. Oh no, here you can see, this is from Harland Street.
Harland Street, yes.
Right, at the high point where it goes over the dam and looking upstream. So you can see the dam creates that zone of silver water. It is about 12 inches high. And that's just a small portion of it. But you see coming toward the front of the photograph, there's still a little fast water before it gets to that little weir at the concrete dam. You see at the upper left, there's some phragmites. That's a patch that reaches over to Harland Street.
That's right.
Yeah, NEPRWA did a little mitigation in there when they lowered the dam at the concrete outlet. So the beavers are in there. They built a lodge. They're busy dam building. And I think, as Chase said, there might come a time when they want to work on that dam to keep it from backing water onto Harland Street. But I would have to say, right now, it's not evident to me that that's happening. And the other thing I would say is how easy it is, or difficult is it to take apart one of these dams? I really don't know anything about that. It just seems to me kind of formidable. Oh, well, here this is on Harland, looking back toward that high point over the dam. And you can see there where they've been repairing it. And you can also see that the grass on the shoulder is combed by the flows that go over here. So that's why I say Harland Street is a dam, and it's being damaged by flows because the culverts can't accommodate them. And the flow goes left to right here. And as it goes over this rim, it plucks away the road. That's why I said facetiously, if the beavers flooded it back to here, they would even out that grade and the road wouldn't be damaged anymore.
The problem is, Tom, that the elevation of the water at the beaver dam has got to be a couple of feet below Harland Street right now.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree.
And
that's right.
And Chase was worried about the beavers affecting Harland Street from the downstream side. And I say, no, I don't think that's not going to happen for a while.
I agree, because it can't begin to happen until, as you say, the water gets a foot or two above the existing dam.
Right.
And if it's that high, there will be so much flow that it's hard to imagine a backup would affect the street.
Yeah.
Well,
the area of that wetland is too large.
Yes.
It holds a lot.
Yeah. I agree with you, Steve, although I think if you want to discuss it further, I'm open to suggestion. I don't feel right now there's much of an argument for messing with it down.
Agreed, agreed. We need to talk to Chase about that, maybe together at some point in the near future, okay?
All right, I'm going to stop sharing, but here's a quiz. Who knows where this is? This is a site that EPA is cleaning up. Yeah, that you can see from the Fairmount Ave Bridge into. I know that's the Neponset River, and going Fairmount into Hyde Park, the High Bridge. You look over to your left. This is the site, and that's where they're removing a lot of PCBs. And what is that building over to the left? That's that new apartment complex on Truman Parkway. It used to be an old folks home. I forget what it's called.
Right.
But they have removed a lot of material here as part of the job. Is it going to Indiana? I don't know. So
is
I'm
there
going
an
to stop
EPA?
sharing.
Yeah, is there an EPA trailer out there, Tom?
Yeah, that's right. And Zanetta and Natalie are in there every day, according to their own word.
Okay.
That's where they work out of.
Yeah, I'd like to stop and see them at some point.
They invited people to come and see them.
Yeah, good.
I was at the meeting at Hyde Park Civic Center. It was about 10 days ago.
Mm-hmm. I have nothing else.
Welcome back, Steve.
Thanks.
All right.
Just to add to this topic that EPA gave a wonderful presentation, I think last Thursday night at the Canton Public Library under the sponsorship of NEPRWA. And NEPRWA recorded it. I think it would be worthwhile seeing if we could get a copy of that recording and have it available to us as a resource. Because they've made a miles worth of progress so far.
Wow.
Who would have the recording, Arthur? Would that be the Canton group, or is that EPA that would have it?
NEPRWA has made the recording.
NEPRWA got it? Okay.
They recorded the presentation.
All right. Can you?
Yeah, they may
ask
post
for
it.
I can contact
Ian or
if you
Sean?
want.
Yeah, that would be great if you could do it, and just
Sure.
give notice to everybody in the commission.
Yeah.
That's good. Anything else for additional business?
Not from me.
So
Someone,
we have,
John,
we
really
have-
quick.
yeah, go ahead.
Someone mentioned to me about Turner's Pond, the path that's the recent work, and I guess it's getting washed out pretty bad.
Also beavers, I'm told.
Really?
Well, no, that's what Chase Berkeley said this a couple of months ago. But then I thought you went down, and a couple of other people that I talked to went there and saw no signs of beavers at all.
Exactly. Just
I'm
before I
talking about
left.
the walking path that circles.
I know you are.
I walked the entire path, Hans, but that was in mid-January that I left. I have not been there since I got back.
Yeah,
and I
somebody
shall
mentioned
be
it to
there.
me yesterday.
Pardon?
Somebody mentioned it to me yesterday. They're somebody that lives there that walks their kid to school every day.
Okay.
Pete
about the path?
Jackson mentioned that there was washout, and they came back to us, maybe November, and asked us to approve a revision to their rehab plan, which we approved. And I thought it was designed to do exactly what you just mentioned. That is to fix that washout on the, I would call it the left-hand side of the pond as you're walking from Central Avenue towards Glover School.
That would
It's
be
about
the
two-thirds of the
north.
way. What's that?
That would be the north side of the pond, John.
Yes.
Okay.
Not left.
Just so everybody can get oriented. That's all.
Gotcha. So that might be worth a call to Pete Jackson,
Sure.
because Pete stays right on top of that, and he was the one that actually brought the request for a revision to us. So Hans, if you know him, you can call him, or I'll call him, whatever you want, but that's worth a follow-up. And Chase might know about it as well.
Chase told me about it.
About what? The washout or about the beavers?
Beavers. He was
Right.
concerned about the
Hans
beavers.
is talking about the washout.
Yeah. Right. Right.
All right. Well, I can check with both Pete and Chase as well.
Sure.
Any other additional business? Hearing nothing, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved, seconded, all in favor? Aye. Good night. God bless.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.
Hey, you're right.
Saturday.
Yes, indeed.
Good night, all.
Good night.